Once there was a tree, and she loved a little boy. And every day the boy would come, and he would gather her leaves and make them into crowns and play king of the forest. He would climb up her trunk and swing from her branches and eat apples. And they would play hide-and-go-seek. And when he was tired, he would sleep in her shade. And the boy loved the tree very much. These are the opening lines of Shel Silverstein's The Giving Tree, a book that I feel could quite snugly fit into the canon of great Jewish texts. It is a story of love, of friendship, and of growing up. And it is one book which would, without fail, make my Ima cry every time she read it to me. So if you're watching, Ima, I'm sorry if I just embarrassed you in front of everyone. My favorite aspect of this story is that it doesn't seem at all strange that Shel Silverstein would choose for the boy's best friend to be a tree. There's something magical about trees, about how we feel when we're walking under their gorgeous awnings, how they gift us with shade and shelter during the hot days of summer, and how they burst into brilliant reds, oranges, and yellows when the air gets a bit colder and winter looms on the horizon. While I wrote this sermon, I did so while looking out the window from my office as the two trees of our courtyard danced in the wind. And I thought back to my childhood, about the weeping willows behind our house, the ones my father almost accidentally burned down with a poorly aimed firework, about the apple and cherry trees that lined our driveway, and the giant ash tree in the front yard of family friends, where a carved-out tractor tire was suspended from a tall branch so that the kids could swing while the adults talked on the porch. In Judaism, we can name countless examples of how trees play a significant role in text, tradition, and ritual. On Tu B'Shvat, we eat the new fruits of spring, and it has become a tradition to plant a tree on that holiday, especially in Eretz Yisrael. During Sukkot, we use the branches of trees to roof and shade our sukkahs, and we use other parts of the tree to ritualistically ask God for rain. And year-round, we refer to the treasure of our people, the treasure that we hold so dearly, our Torah, as Eitz Chaim, as the tree of life. But our tradition has not always viewed our friends in nature so favorably. And I wanted to take this time to share some thoughts because I'm worried that we're again drifting away from a beautiful and important relationship, one that goes much deeper than plants and trees. Our parasha this week should tip us off to the complexity of this ancient partnership. We read in the 12th chapter of Devarim of the book of Deuteronomy, Abed te'abdun et kol hamekamot asher abdu sham hagoyim asher atem yoshim otam et Elohehem al heharim haramim ve'al hagavaot ve'tachat kol eitz ra'anan. You must destroy all the sites at which the nations you are to dispossess worshipped their gods, whether on lofty mountaintops or on hills or under any luxuriant tree. Tear down their altars, smash their pillars, and put their sacred trees to the fire. The trees in our parasha are not the ones we think of today. At the time of the Bible, sacred places were often marked by a special tree. And these trees would often come to be avatars for the tribe's collective god. So the Canaanites, for example, who worshipped Baal, would use sacred trees to serve as manifestations of Baal in different regions throughout that tribal territory. There would be an Asherah, a tree that would be in this part of Canaan, a tree in this part of Canaan, and it would represent Baal. For this reason, our parasha responds to the trees of the promised land with hostility and with violence. These trees are the equivalent of foreign gods and must therefore be destroyed. And yet something interesting happened at some point in Jewish history, because even though the Torah quite clearly commands specific action against these holy trees, the Israelite response was very different, even scandalous. Rather than destroying the trees and stripping them of their cultic power, Israel preserved them and adapted them into Jewish ritual and practice. Instead of consigning them to the fire, the Israelites anointed them with oil and adopted the tree as a standard symbol of art, of text, and language. It is no coincidence that the Torah is called Eitz Chaim, a tree of life. It is no coincidence that our Torah scrolls are adorned with rimonim, with pomegranates. And it is no coincidence that the handles of every Torah are wooden and called eitz, the tree. Going a bit further, the sacred tree used by the non-Jews of the Bible is called an Asherah. If that word sounds at all familiar, it's because Jews incorporated it into Hebrew and made it synonymous with joy, celebration, and fertility. Ashrei yoshvei beitecha od yahalelucha selah. Happy are those who dwell in your house. Osher, happiness. The tribe of Asher. All of these come from this concept of Asherah, of foreign trees and foreign tribes. Trees that became meaningful to our people thousands of years ago, and trees that have made our religion and our culture what it is today. Once there was a tree, and she loved a little boy, and every day the boy would come and he would gather her leaves and make them into crowns. It's difficult for us to hear that something we think of as so profoundly Jewish has influence from different cultures, has grown and has been positively shaped by people different from us, that the leaves of our Torah have been made into crowns with the help of hands other than ours alone. But what an important and beautiful message that we as Jews are better today because we have learned from others, because we have anointed the trees of foreignness with oil rather than throwing them into the fire, that we have shared in the harvest of their fruit rather than severing their roots and stomping out their flowers. If you'll bear with me for a quick second, I'd like to try something, and I realize that this might not be up everyone's alley, but please just go along with me for 1 second. I ask that everyone close their eyes right now. Now I want you to raise your hand if you are not Jewish, if you are a convert, if you have somebody in your family, an in-law, a close friend, a teacher, a mentor who is a convert, or if you have learned something positive about yourself as a Jew from someone who is not Jewish. Go ahead and raise your hand. Keep your hands up and open your eyes and look around the room. This is the tree of our Torah. A Torah that teaches us to love our neighbors and to never forget that we were once strangers in the land of Egypt. A Torah that welcomed in the Erev Rav, the mixed multitude, as the Israelites left Egypt. That canonized the book of Ruth and celebrates her story of love and dedication each and every year. A Torah that marched arm in arm with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. from Selma to Montgomery, and a Torah that allows the son of a kind and brilliant Norwegian Lutheran from a farm in Iowa to become a rabbi and to teach Torah from this bima. In the giving tree, the boy grows up, and throughout different stages of his life, he looks to the tree but fails to recognize just how much the tree loves him, how she is willing to give him every last bit of herself to provide him with comfort and with peace. My heart breaks at the thought that any of us make the same mistake as that boy. The thought that someday I could wake up and not thank God with my whole heart for having made me a Jew, and equally thankful that I have a father who is not, and yet loves me and my Judaism with every fiber of his being. That I may forget that I have friends and family in this congregation and all around the world who have cast their lot with the Jewish people because their soul belongs with a small but resilient tribe called Israel. But the boy stayed away for a long time. And when he came back, the tree was so happy she could hardly speak. "Come, boy," she whispered. "Come and play." "I am too old and too sad to play," said the boy. "I want a boat that will take me far away from here. Can you give me a boat?" "Cut down my trunk and make a boat," said the tree. "Then you can sail away and be happy." And so the boy cut down her trunk and made a boat, and sailed away. And the tree was happy, but not really. While the world is on fire with the hatred of fundamentalism and religious intolerance, let's take the Shabbat to celebrate the different trees that have made this community the warm, welcoming, and so very Jewish place that it is today. Let's be thankful for those who are here as Jews by choice, who have decided to be in this holy space on a Shabbat morning because their heart and their soul is attached to a people who tend to trees rather than cut them down. Let's be thankful for the people we love in our lives who may not be Jewish and yet have changed who we are for the better, who have loved us and stood by our side, who have planted themselves with us and tethered their roots to ours. My friends, there will always be trees in your life that will look, sound, and act differently than the ones that we know so well. What you do with them is ultimately up to you. But my blessing for you all is that you may climb every last one of them, take in the views from their highest branches, gather their leaves, and make them into crowns. To end the story, and after a long time, the boy came back again. "I'm sorry, boy," said the tree, "but I have nothing left to give you. My apples are gone." "My teeth are too weak for apples," said the boy. "My branches are gone," said the tree. You can't swing on them anymore." "I'm too old to swing on branches," said the boy. "My trunk is gone," said the tree. "You can't climb." "I am too tired to climb," said the boy. "I'm sorry," sighed the tree. "I wish that I could give you something, but I have nothing left. I am just an old stump. I'm sorry." "I don't need very much now," said the boy. "Just a quiet place to sit and rest, for I am so very tired." "Well," said the tree, straightening herself up as much as she could, "well, an old stump is good for sitting and resting. Come, boy, sit down and rest." And the boy did, and the tree was happy. Shabbat Shalom.